Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The Prime Minister seeks to explain why the government purchased the Grand Lucayan Hotel.
The opposition leader argues that the sales agreement shows that the hotel is already purchased.
The Consultant Physician Staff Association say enough is enough.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Despite promising that all would be revealed in the House of Assembly today on government's purchase of the Grand Lucayan Resort, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis provided no new details about the $65 million purchase. Instead, Minnis insisted that a new day is dawning for Grand Bahama and the deal could create 1,200 direct jobs. He also slammed the former government and took a swipe at the Wynn Group, which he said made unreasonable requests of the government. Jasmine Brown reports.
The time for talk is over. Today, Mr. Speaker, it is the time to act.
As he led off debate on a resolution to borrow $35 million to complete the purchase of the Grand Lucayan, Minnis insisted that under no circumstances could his administration in good conscience allow Grand Bahama's economy to head further south.
Our mission is about more than saving a resort. Our mission is about saving and repositioning Grand Bahama. Today is about more than saving 400 jobs. Our greater mission is to create 1,200 direct jobs and hundreds of indirect jobs.
Despite his promise to provide full disclosure in his communication in the House of Assembly, the Prime Minister didn't provide any new details of the sale outside of what is already in the public domain. But he did lash out at the opposition, which has heavily criticized the government's decision to spend $65 million to purchase the hotel. The PM highlighted the former PLP government's knowledge of what the Wynn development was demanding of the former Christie government to complete the transaction.
One, $2 million paid by the government to Wynn 60 days after closing. Two, $8 million per year paid by the government to Wynn for the first 3 years for property subsidy. 3.
Not an operating subsidy now.
$7.2 million per year for the subsequent 2 years for property subsidy.
That's $14 million.
4. $1.5 million per year for 5 years casino subsidy. 5. Airlift subsidy of $7 million for 3 years.
Minnis also revealed the shocking requests made of the government by the Wynn Group in order to purchase the hotel.
The government must pay its 15% share up front instead of over time as previously agreed. 2, the government agreed to ensure Paul Wynn is provided with electricity at a reduced 20% discount rate. The government must pay 20% of the electricity rate of the hotel for an investor when many Bahamians' electricity is off. 3, Mr. Speaker, Paul Wynn would be permitted to employ 420 non-Bahamians for work on the project.
Never.
What would that do to Grand Bahama?
The PM said if government had agreed to the terms negotiated by the former government, the government would be paying $159.65 million for the hotel with no ownership or stake in the property.
Now I ask them, were we wrong in telling him, I don't want to say where I told them to go and how deep. I don't want to say that.
Now, as it relates to the status of the hotel, Minnis again reiterated the government's intention to offload the Grand Lucayan property as soon as possible to a private buyer. He says their first choice is to sell to Bahamians. The PM confirmed discussions have already started with a number of interested parties. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Well, Exuma's and Ragged Island MP Chester Cooper is predicting government's acquisition of the Grand Lucayan will cost Bahamian taxpayers at least $100 million after it pays for the resort. Employee severance packages, interest on its loan, stamp duty on the mortgage, soap, silverware, and other resort inventory not included in the deal. He noted that while the Minnis administration had no money in its budget for hurricane-ravaged Ragged Island, the people's checkbook was wide open for Hutchison Whampoa, which he says got a sweet deal. Jared Higgs reports.
Is this a $65 million deal? Or is it a $100 million deal, as I contend?
PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper has slammed government's agreement with Hutchison Lucaya Limited to purchase the Grand Lucayan Resort as an egregiously bad deal, and asserted that the hefty resort purchase is not about its 400 employees, but rather the Prime Minister's ego. This as he questioned how a resort that was appraised at $57 million before Hurricane Matthew could now cost $65 million after being damaged. Cooper predicts that the $65 million purchase price for the hotel is just a fraction of what it will ultimately cost the Bahamian people.
Let me say from the outset that the government appears to be most disingenuous in how it has framed this deal in trying to explain it to the Bahamian people. They said nothing about the all-in cost, and I believe this deal will ultimately cost the taxpayers at least $100 million.
Breaking down the numbers, Cooper says that $65 million purchase price doesn't include a long list of expenses, including interest payments, stamp taxes, and funds owed to the resort staff.
Employee obligations in the government has magnanimously agreed to shoulder the responsibility of. I calculate and estimate that that's perhaps in the region of $8 million for back pay and union obligations and severance and pension obligations. Are the pension obligations up to date? Perhaps it's a little more than $8 million, but I use $8 million. Again, I'm being conservative. The government will pay another $2 million, being conservative, to subsidize the Hutchison loss until the sale closes.
Cooper's $100 million estimate also includes the cost of replacing supplies such as soap, cleaning material, linen, and stationery, items Hutchison says they'll be taking with them.
Hutchison also told the government they can't have the napkins or the plates or the joy or the cleaning supplies or the toilet paper in the resort. They wanted those because that was a part of the inventory according to the SPA. So we're going to give you're going to give them $65 million, but they're going to take all of the inventory in the hotel. So you'll need to replenish that. So let's be conservative again. Let's be conservative again and say that's another $500,000.
Cooper also slammed government for giving Hutchison a sweet deal while Bahamian taxpayers get the short end of the stick.
Whoever negotiated this deal on behalf of Hutchison, I want him on my team. Because this is a sweet, sweet deal for Hutchison, but this is an egregiously bad deal for the Bahamian people. The property is worth $57 million before the hurricanes. They get $80 million from the insurance company, then they come back and they get another $65 million from the government, $88 million more than the appraised value. I want them on my team, Mr. Speaker.
PLP leader Philip Davis also took a shot at Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, who likened the deal to the auto and bank bailout of 2008. He says that's a misguided comparison.
What Obama did, he provided a bailout. He did not take over the auto industry. He provided a bailout. And yes, and the government here could have provided a bailout as well, which we would have supported. We don't have an issue with it. We would have supported a bailout, right? But in this instance, Mr. Speaker, this is not a bailout, but a takeover.
Davis agreed that the deal is a bad one and warned that Hutchison Whampoa is laughing all the way to the bank. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
Well, Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar insisted that while some may not agree with the purchase, the Minnis administration has set in motion a plan that will revitalize the island's ailing tourism sector.
Simply put, the redevelopment of Grand Lucayan will bring additional airlift Additional airlift will improve the economy, which will bring relief to Grand Bahama.
As he made his case, Yagler revealed a 58% decline in the physical inventory of hotel rooms on Grand Bahama over the last 16 years.
From 4,000 rooms in 2002, I'm advised that the island today has an inventory of just 1,678 rooms.
He revealed that while Grand Bahama enjoyed air arrivals of almost 160,000 in 2015, that number had dropped to just 70,000 by 2017. He added the significant decline can be attributed to the drastic decrease in hotel rooms. For that reason alone, he says Grand Bahama needs this government's intervention.
Mr. Speaker, we simply cannot remain on the sideline. Today, the government is taking concrete steps to address this problem. Today, the government steps in and brings relief.
In other news, one day after junior doctors at Princess Margaret Hospital walked off the job, consultant physicians protested outside the facility over limited resources, no health insurance, and poor working conditions. The staff association representing physicians says they are just one step away from taking industrial action. Jillian Gray reports.
Holding up placards that read, "Cleaning lady $1.8 million, doctors zero," members of the Consultant Physician Staff Association protested outside Princess Margaret Hospital's critical care block after the Public Hospitals Authority failed to address a long list of concerns. Physicians say they are at their breaking point and industrial action may just be what the doctor ordered.
We intend to take industrial action if PHA does not bargain in good faith. I am sorry to have to say that it comes to this, but we are so frustrated and our patients are suffering to such an extent that we have to take a stand. All we ask is that Public Hospitals Authority meet with us, discuss in good faith with us, negotiate in good faith. It's been 2 years and we have not had any meaningful discussion. Ask yourselves, the public, ask yourself, how long would you tolerate such action by someone who treats you like that? I would like to say that we have probably had more patients than most. It is because the people behind me are good-hearted, good-natured, kind, generous, giving people. But we have reached our breaking point.
Citing limited resources and the absence of health insurance and a pension plan, Dillard said they have repeatedly attempted to meet with PHA officials. He added it seems the government can find money for other ventures like a multi-million-dollar Grand Bahama hotel, but not for health care.
The health of the nation is as important as it gets. And for the persons who are leading that charge, when you have no health insurance, no pension, no raise in 10 years, we are fatigued, we are unhappy, we are losing persons, we are losing people who have skills that we desperately need. That has to be a priority. The government has to decide. Is the health of the nation less of a priority as other things? Is a hotel more important than the health of a nation? Are there other things that are more important than people's lives? It's up to them to decide.
Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands said the purchase of the Grand Lucayan is an unusual but necessary purchase.
None of us exist in a void. We're all connected to each other. And when we speak about one Bahamas, if Grand Bahama goes, the rest of the Bahamas goes. And so as we seek to have this rising tide elevate all boats, what's most important is that we thrive as a country, and then everybody can see an improvement in their income, in their conditions of service, in the ambience, in our hospitals, in our schools, in our airports, in our roads, and so on and so forth.
This demonstration against PHA comes one day after the doctors' union staged a protest in an effort to have their voices heard. The health minister said while he understands the plight of all healthcare providers, they will be realistic about how soon change can come.
The Public Hospital Authority has basically between a $40 and $50 million dollar deficit this year. And so that has manifestations in terms of maintenance. It has manifestations in terms of paying essential bills. And so it would be irresponsible of me to make a commitment without knowing where the revenue will come from.
Now again, the Consultant Physician Staff Association say they will be at this for as long as it takes for them to get answers. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Still to come on Our News, one F&M MP expresses reservations over the Grand Lucayan deal. Plus, police in Abaco discover a large marijuana field. The details are after this break.